On planet Earth, 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom unite to form a tiny molecule that is so vitally important that no life can exist without it. Due to the wide range of temperatures on our planet, H2O exists as a liquid, solid, and gas. In liquid form, it is called water, and nearly 3/4 of Earth is covered with it. Studies say that the human body is 60% water and that the average human needs to consume an average of 2 liters of water per day. But this average is dependent on many factors such as climate and activity levels. The effects of dehydration are the sensation of thirst, dry mouth, headaches, cramps, dizziness, irritability, fatigue, and eventually death. I've experienced all these symptoms except death. So I said earlier that nearly 3/4 of the Earth's surface is covered with water. But most of the water is found in the oceans and seas, which we can't drink. In fact, they say that only 3% of the total water found on Earth is actually fresh water. And only about 1% of that is even safe to drink. Based on these statistics, human beings should only drink commercially sold bottled water or water from sophisticated modern filtration systems. There are too many possible waterborne illnesses to list here, but 3 common ones are giardia, cholera, and dysentery. And you don't want any of them inside you. But how do the wild animals drink from the wild and not get sick? I've pondered that question a long time. According to studies, wild animals develop superior immune systems that can tolerate a certain level of pathogens in the water, while humans have lost that level of immunity due to our modern ways of living apart from nature. Furthermore, they say that most wild animals drink from the same water source all their lives, therefore they are exposed to the same bacteria of which they develop immunity to. But in reality, wild animals do at times get sick and die from contaminated water. We just don't observe it happening because they tend to hide when they are ill. Let it be known that I am aware of only one time that I believe I got dysentery from drinking wild, unfiltered water. It was from a river in southern Mexico that passes through several towns along its course. I had a very mild case of diarrhea that lasted a few days, and that was it. I'm not aware of getting any other illnesses from drinking wild water. I'm dividing the landscapes up into 3 distinct zones: desert, mountain, and tropical. The driest places on Earth are the deserts. Some deserts receive very little to no rain ever, such as parts of the Atacama Desert in Chile and the Sahara Desert in Africa. Getting water in the desert means going to where water is likely to exist. Sand dunes in the middle of the dry season are not a likely place to find water. Death in the desert due to dehydration is more common than you think. You can search the topic online and find endless reports of migrants, lost travelers, and hikers of all ages that succumb to the lethal effects of dehydration in deserts around the world. Therefore, it is good to know some techniques to find water in the desert. Water is life, so looking for signs of life will get you moving in the right direction. Green vegetation is a sure sign of the presence of water. Vegetation usually is found in low areas where water is more likely to gather. A low area at the base of a rocky hill or mountain is often a good place to look for water in the desert. When it rains, the mountains capture water and slowly distribute it through the mountain, both at the surface and as groundwater. Often that groundwater will be released in the form of a seep or spring near the base of the mountain. This water is naturally filtered and often safe to drink raw. It's very helpful to use a container to capture and carry water. If you don't have one, sometimes you can find something such as this dry coyote gourd. A dry wash often leads to a seasonal creek that only has water during rains. But like I said before, the mountains hold water and slowly release it over time. Seepage is evident in this moist sand. Further up, I find a patch of wet sand being visited by insects. Butterflies and bees are great indicators that water is nearby. Digging a tiny well allows the water to collect, and then I can dip my cup to gather the life-preserving fluid. Washes are common in some deserts. A wash is just a channel where water flows when heavy rains occur. They are usually sandy and sometimes have water not far below the surface. Here I only had to dig 1 foot beneath the surface to find water. It was brown in color, but I still drank it and used it to cool off. I don't always feel confident enough to drink water without treating it. In this case, there is a small pool of stagnant water that wild animals could likely walk through. However, further down, the water filters through the earth and resurfaces in this large pool that I believe to be safer to drink. After a period of heavy rains, desert washes can transform into swift-flowing rivers. This river in the desert is so muddy that I'm not willing to drink the water directly. Boiling questionable water is a good way to destroy potentially harmful pathogens. After a few minutes of boiling, I let the water cool and drink it. This muddy water contains so much organic matter that it tastes a little like a seafood soup. After a rain, sometimes you could find puddles of water in non-porous rock depressions. This water usually doesn't exist for long because it evaporates or soaks through the rock, but it's often safe to drink. If you have the time, a simple water filter can be formed from clay, fired, and then filled with charcoal, sand, and pebbles. This won't purify the water, but it will filter out organic matter and small particles. Boiling it afterwards will ensure that it's safe. Obviously, plants contain water in their cells, but for a plant to be a useful source of water, it needs to contain ample quantities of fluid and also be safe to consume. Certain species of prickly pear fruit and some other cactus fruits are an excellent source of water when the fruit is ripe. There are hundreds of species of prickly pear cactus, and some produce fruit that is juicy and delicious. The water content in the fruit quenches the thirst, but be careful of the seeds. Too many can cause severe constipation that can wreck your day. So it's best to spit out the seeds or collect a lot of fruit and just extract the juice. Here's a really unique way to get water from the desert agave plant. The leaves of the desert agave are loaded with water, but you can't just squeeze it out to drink it. There are saponins and toxins that will actually make you sick. But if the leaves are cooked, then the toxins are neutralized and the juice can easily be squeezed out and consumed. I've only done this with the species called desert agave, and I don't know if it works with other agave species. This method works best if you use a container or wrap the leaves in such a way that they don't dry out during the cooking process. After an hour of baking, the juice can be consumed, and it's actually quite good. After winter rains, desert rhubarb can be found in some places. This plant contains high levels of oxalic acid, so consumption should be limited. However, chewing on the stems of the plant, not the leaves, is a way to get some hydration. It will definitely relieve thirst, but this plant should not be relied on as a long-term water source. Swimming in an alpine lake and drinking freezing cold water is not the best way to hydrate, but it's a good way to possibly get hypothermia. However, the mountains definitely offer some good hydration opportunities. Snow is basically the solid form of H2O. Clean snow can be eaten as it is, but melted snow that flows into creeks is a much more efficient way to get water. Another way is to collect the snow in a container and melt it next to a fire. Mountains are like naturally occurring water towers. Water falls in the form of rain or snow and is slowly distributed to the lowlands by streams, snow melt, and groundwater flow. Mountain streams are generally very clean, but harmful pathogens can still be found. Fortunately, I have never gotten sick after drinking from mountain streams. Some people are strongly opposed to the fact that I often drink untreated water in the wild, but I'm not telling you to do this. As I said earlier, it's a matter of immunity. Frequent exposure to the raw elements of nature have made my immune system stronger than that of most modern people. Am I totally immune? No. There are always risks. That's life. So make sure that you consider your personal risk factors before going on wilderness adventures and be prepared for whatever situation you may find yourself in. With that said, I want to emphasize that I don't drink from every water source I find. In this case, the water is fast moving and appears very clean. This is a very remote area and there are no towns upstream. It's also a small stream. I'm less confident to drink directly from larger rivers. On this particular adventure, I drank only from one stream and I had absolutely no health problems afterwards. When in doubt, it's always best to boil the water over a fire. After it cools, it is safe to drink. A lot of mountain environments offer delicious fruit that contains significant quantities of water. Consuming too much fruit can cause diarrhea in some people, and that can lead to dehydration, so moderation should be practiced. Also, some wild fruits may contain toxins that can be harmful in high quantities. I've consumed large quantities of huckleberries and blueberries without any problem at all. I even relied heavily on wild blueberries as a major food source when exploring in Alaska. However, elderberries are said to contain toxic compounds that could make you sick if you eat too many of them in their raw form. I've eaten handfuls of raw elderberries many times while hiking, and I never got sick. With the water content in them was truly refreshing. But everybody is different, so proceed with caution if you don't have experience eating raw elderberries. There are many other wild fruits that can be found in the mountains, but not all are juicy and useful to a thirsty hiker. These currents are rather dry and not a good source of water. So if water is the priority, then only eat juicy fruits that you know are safe to eat. The tropics are a region close to the equator where the sun is high and the weather is warm year-round. Heat, humidity, and lots of rain are common much of the year. Despite all the rain and moisture, getting water that is safe to drink is not always easy. Plus, the high heat and humidity makes you sweat profusely, thus increasing the amount of water you need to drink. Water that falls as precipitation and permeates into the earth is called groundwater. Gravity causes groundwater to move through paths of least resistance. As it slowly travels through the permeable earth, it may drip out of a seaside bluff like this seep. Seaside bluffs are often good places to look for water. Deep canyons in the tropics are often fed by springs that freely flow out of the canyon walls. Like I said earlier, I avoid drinking from rivers because of the risk of contamination, but the water from springs is filtered through the earth and less likely to be contaminated. Springs are basically an open tap for groundwater. The taste of the water varies among different locations due to the minerals found in the earth. In some places, groundwater is contaminated with naturally occurring arsenic. In most cases, arsenic can't be detected by taste, so arsenic poisoning can be a risk factor if an arsenic-contaminated water source is used for a long time. It's best to do your own research about a specific location or have the water properly tested. The water in this region is considered hard water due to its high mineral content. Limestone is everywhere here and is slowly dissolved into the groundwater. This effect is visibly evident in the calcium carbonate-rich waters in Chiapas, Mexico, where turquoise rivers contrast vividly with the dense green forest. According to studies, this mineral-rich hard water is actually good for your health, but an excess of calcium may cause problems for some people. There's something almost magical about drinking from a waterfall. However, it's important to consider where the water is coming from above. If it springs forth from a canyon wall, then I'll drink it. If not, then I'll pass. Rainwater very slowly dissolves and erodes limestone, creating underground caverns. In this limestone cavern, there are several springs that erupt from the limestone walls. I feel confident enough to safely drink the water from these springs. As I said before, boiling the water will kill all pathogens and ensure that it is safe to drink. In this case, a large piece of bamboo serves as a container. I start a fire to heat up rocks, collect fresh water from the stream, and then boil the water by dropping the hot rocks in the container. After a few minutes, it will be safe to drink. I was about to drink the water when it started to rain. And it's starting to rain.
I forgot my shirt!
Rain provides a good source of clean water to drink, but it also creates very slippery conditions.
So I have no water, but guess what? Because it's raining, I got fresh water that's perfectly safe to drink, falling from the sky. So all's good! It's raining!
Rainwater collection is an excellent method to capture drinking water. If materials are prepared beforehand, then you could be ready to gather a lot of water when it pours. These empty coconut shells are excellent containers to hold water. The base of palm branches helps funnel the water into the containers. Split pieces of bamboo are also effective tools to capture rainwater. The water can then be drunk or saved for later use. The most famous water-bearing fruit is the coconut. Tropical coastlines are known for their palm-fringed beaches and tasty coconut water. But they can be found growing inland as well. I am particularly fond of coconuts. My first attempts to harvest a coconut were a test of patience, but I gradually learned ways to climb high up a coconut palm.
That is how you retrieve coconuts.
Green coconuts are the best for water. They are easier to open and have less fat, which could otherwise cause diarrhea. 10 coconuts a day can usually keep me hydrated.
1, 2,
On many of my tropical adventures, I relied heavily on coconuts for water. Sometimes it was difficult to find coconut palms, and many hours had passed where I was extremely thirsty and suffering from dehydration. But when I finally found coconuts, it was heavenly. Coconut water is sweet and energizing. It's the perfect electrolyte, and it's my drink of choice in the tropics. In times of desperation, there is another plant that I've used to get water. There is a species of cactus called Purifying that grows in the West Indies. 12 years ago, while exploring an island, I ran out of water and was suffering symptoms of dehydration. I turned to this cactus for help. Earlier that day, I had found a hatchet lying on the edge of a cliff I was crossing. I used the hatchet to cut the spines off the cactus, and then I ate the core like a cucumber. Surprisingly, it even tasted like a cucumber. But most importantly, it quenched my thirst. Since then, I have eaten this cactus several times and never got sick from it. Once the thorns are cut off, water can actually be squeezed out and drunk as it is. Purifying isn't as good of a water source as coconuts, but when there are no other options, it's the next best thing. There are so many other juicy fruits that are effective thirst quenchers. Kwahilote grows from the trunk and branches like cacao. The juicy flesh provides some water and refreshment in hot weather. The fruit from this palm tree is easy to gather and is also edible. The tart-flavored pulp is really tasty and quenches the thirst. Throughout human history, civilizations learned ways to acquire safe drinking water. In my opinion, the collection and use of fresh rainwater is the safest form of wild water to drink. Water that has been in or on the ground will always pose some level of risk. A person's level of immunity will determine how contaminated water may affect them. Filtration and boiling such water will greatly reduce that risk. But contaminants such as arsenic can only be removed through more complex filtration methods or distillation. So keep this in mind when you're out there. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you like to read about adventure, check out my book, Wandering Souls. You can click the link in the description below to get it. Thanks, and I'll see you the next time.
I forgot my shirt. Gotta get my shirt. Bro. ¿Estás bien? Probably not.